Now we start off the day's session with some conditional data management using SAS, and see, as you probably would be knowing that when we open up the SAS software, it opens up with these windows where the editor is the window where we write the syntaxes for any execution, and the Explorer window contains the libraries where files can be stored and displayed, and so any data file which is present in any of these any system in the any folder in the system can only be accessed when we have linked that through a library. Now here currently, if you can see that we have 4 active libraries in the Explorer window. Now SAS help, SAS user and work being SAS system libraries, and D is a library which is a user created library which is right now currently looking into this particular folder. Okay, so in the desktop there is a folder called SAS Webinar. That particular folder is being identified by SAS by this library called D. Now in terms of conditional creation of data and conditional execution of data, I will take the help of a data in SAS help library. It's a SAS system library, and I'll be taking the use of that library. Now in that library, when I click on, I get to see data called class. Now if you look into this data, there are 5 variables, name, sex, age, height and weight for 19 individuals. So now suppose I want to do some conditional creation in the data. So suppose I want to create a new extra column in this data, but its value should be contingent upon the value of sex. Suppose if the sex is male, then that particular variable should store some particular value. If it's female, it should store some other value. So we write the code in the editor window. I'll just increase the font size a bit. Okay, so I have a data called I'm creating a new data called new in my D library from the old data class in the SAS help library, and so what we are doing is if the variable sex has the value m, then a column called x will store for me the square of the age variable. Else, that means if it is female, it will store for me the log of the age variable. So if I run this, sorry, I mistakenly first closed this. কথা বলতে কম বলো তো। If I look into my D library and look into the data called new, So this column called X is storing the square of the age variable when it's the male, and it's storing the log of the age variable when it's a female. Now this variable called X, if you look at this value of this X, it needs a bit of formatting because there are too many place of decimals, so that we can also achieve through something called formatting. Okay, so if I write here, now for numeric variables we use this kind of formats called w.d. W is the total width of the variable, dot d is how many we want of the decimal. So now if I run this, the values will be formatted into a 2 place of decimal. So we get to exhibit this. Now this was a case when the variable called sex, which was used as in the condition, had only 2 categories. So there we could work with if and else, but suppose we want to work with more than 2 categories. Suppose I want to do something like age less than 13, age between 13 to 14, age more than 14, something like that. So let's see how it works. So how we write like this is that if age is less than 13, then I'm creating a tag which has the value of 1. Else if age is less than equal to 14, else if means only when the first condition is not satisfied, then only I go and check the second condition. So that means it automatically excludes people who are age below 13. So now this statement means that among the rest, that is people who are already age greater than equal to 13, among them if anybody's age is less than equal to 14, then I create tag is equal to 2, else tag is equal to 3. So else means anybody is above 14. So if I do this, questions कहाँ पे आते हैं? नहीं. So now once we executed this, if you look here, see people who are below 13, their tag is 1. People who are between 13 to 14, their tag is 2. And people who are above 14, their tag is 3. Now I would like to introduce you to one more feature of SAS through this. Now see here we can look into this 1, 2 and 3, but from the code we know that okay, 1 means age less than 13, 2 means age between 13 to 14 and 3 means age above 14. But when we display them in the data, they will be displayed right now in this 1, 2, 3 format. But suppose I want to have the values as 1, 2, 3, but want to display them as these values. Okay, so this can be done through formatting, but there is no inbuilt format in SAS which can do this. So we need to create our own formats. Now for that, something called a Proc format comes into play. Now, see here we have been doing them as conditional execution. We are creating an extra column X in this case, which is contingent upon the value of a column of the contingent upon the value of the variable called sex. When sex is male, it's creating the value as the square, while when it is else means automatically it is f, that is females, it's just, the X is storing the log of age, while here it's storing the values contingent upon the values of the age variable but with multiple categories. So here instead of one if and else, the else if comes into play because we are having multiple categories getting displayed. So when age is less than 30, I'm creating this tag as this value. When age is this, I'm creating this tag as this value. And when age is above 14, I'm creating this tag as this value. But tag being a character variable, I'm formatting that with a dollar sign so that it takes into account and increasing the width sufficiently so that it can accommodate all the characters that this tag variable is supposed to display. Right? Clear with this, everybody? Now, proceeding further with this, now here under each of these conditions, we just created a single variable. Okay, but suppose under each of these conditions, I want to create multiple variables. So suppose under one condition, I want to create multiple variables. So now if I look into the structure of the earlier code, it was something like this: data new set old, and if I give a condition, and if I give a particular condition, against that I provide him with some action. Then again else if condition, then some other action. Now under one particular condition, if I'm giving some action, then else if another condition comes into play and we put in another action. Ultimately similar kind of multiple else ifs can continue if we have multiple such categories. And finally when I'm exhausted with all those conditions, I can give him else action. So this is the basic structure of this conditional execution under SAS. Now here what we have so far displayed is that under each condition we are having a single action. But suppose under each condition we want to have multiple actions. That means I want to do create multiple variables under a single condition. So if I want to have it the multiple condition way or multiple action way, then the structure will be a bit different. So data new set old, if condition, then instead of a single action, I want a series of actions to happen. So I start off with another loop called a do loop, then do a series of actions, that is action 1, action 2, and ultimately we move over to action n. And finally when we are done with a particular loop, we close it by a end so that it comes out of that do loop. So under each condition we do n number of actions and we end it by end. Similarly under each of these we'll have one set of actions, two set of action, n set of action. Similarly against this also we'll have n set of actions. And finally when we are exhausted with all conditions, we do it else a set of actions. Let me just save the code. So let's display this through this. Suppose with these variables we have. So under this condition, I'm creating this tag as one variable, and I want to do multiple variables under each of these conditions. So I want to create a column called X, which will store the log of the age variable, a column Y, which will store the log of the weight variable, a column Z that will store the log of the height variable, and we can end this by an end. Similarly, under this condition, I want this tag to be created. Apart from that, I want X to store, say, some value as 1000, Y to store some value as this, Z to store some value as this, and we end it. And finally, under this, we do this, X to store, say, age into 10, Y to store weight into 10, and Z to store again weight into height into 10. And I end this by end. And if I want to format each one of them, I can format them. So if I want to format a number of variables with the same format, I can mention them in the same line. So if I now run this, not only we get these, but also based on the age group we create. For below 13, it's the log of the three variables. If it is above 13, between 13 to 14, it is 1000, 555, 999, and if it is above 14, then each of them multiplied by the 10. So this is age into 10, then we have weight into 10, and finally height into 10. So similarly, through this we can create variables. Conditionally, we can create n number of variables. Now the variable on which we are giving the condition, here I've used a single variable, but it can be a combination of different variables. I can use something like age less than 13 and sex equal to F. So I can use and or not to have multiple conditions of these sort created, and accordingly I can conditionally create columns in my data. Now the next thing which I would like to move over to is how we can conditionally display my data. Now displaying of data happens through a proc called proc print. Now if I say proc print data equal to sasself.class, it will display the entire data, which seldom we want because the data is very large. But just to illustrate the basic proc, let me just run this once. So if I do this, I get to see the entire data, that is all variables, all observations. However, we can conditionally alter or my view of the data. For example, if I want to only display the females, I can do that. So I get to see only the females. Similarly, if I want to see people below a particular age, so I want to see them, say, people whose age is below 13, so I get to see this. Similarly, if I want to get to see people between 13 to 14, so I can display like this. Similarly, people who are above 13 or below 14. So I can use logical operators like and or not to accordingly create conditions based on my suitability. So either people are below 13 or above 14. And I can use multiple variables also. So if I want this group but only the females, so I can write here sex. So I get to see these people. Now not only can, so all of them are females and age is either below 13 or above 14. Now not only I can use variables, the actual variables in these conditions, but I can also use some transformations of them. So suppose I want to display from this, from whatever the original data was, this as_help.class, I want to display all females whose name starts with J. So I want to display these Joyce, Judy, these people. Okay. So Janet, Jane, but not these Jeffrey or John. So, so suppose I want to display and I only want to display their name, age and sex, and where I want the first letter of the name to be J. So we have discussed this in the last webinar about how we can work with different functions in SAS. So this tells me that the first letter of the name variable is F and I want the sex to be female. So J. So I get to see these 4 ladies whose names start with J from this particular data. So like this we can conditionally extract or understand, because mostly we work with data which are extremely large in volume, and from these data to identify or locate certain individuals, this kind of proc print statements comes in very handy with us, which helps us to get some suitable information out of the data. So for example, suppose I have a data which is called AIR, A-I-R in SAS help, and it has a variable called date and another international and another variable which is called air, which is actually international airline travels in thousands of miles. Now from this data, suppose I want to find out only the weekdays or weekends, okay, only the weekends, say after 1952. So I can create an n number of such combinations of conditions and I can display my data in whatever way I want to. So now, weekday is a function which acts on a date variable to give the day of the week, and in SAS the day starts from a Sunday. Okay, so when I talk about weekday is 1, that means I'm talking about a Sunday, and to mean a Saturday I need to talk about weekday as 7. And I want the year to be after 1952. So year is a function which acts on a date variable to give the particular year. And if I want, I can format the look of a variable in the print version also. Suppose I want to format this as now this format gives me the day of the week along with the date. So here I can see that it displays to me all the weekends, Saturdays or Sundays, which are after 1953. So if you look at this, I get all the Saturdays and Sundays which are after 1952. So through this kind of procs, we can display any kind of outputs from SAS. And not only this, I will just to finish it off, I will just take you through one more concept, which is, see, this output which we get to display in this output window, how we can transfer this into some external files, because these are not conducive for any particular operation. If I want to modify something or present this into or put them as part of a document which I need to be presenting to some of my clients or somebody, these are not part of these. We cannot put them in directly there unless and until we can put them as some Word or Excel file which can be editable and can be used for further operation. Now that happens through an activity called ODS. Now as the name suggests, ODS means Output Delivery System. Okay. Now this is called Output Delivery System. Now if I want to save this output, whatever getting displayed in the output window, into some folders, I need to tell him which folder I want to do it to. So the file path and the file name and extension name, suppose I give the name. So I'm transferring this entire output into this particular folder by this particular name. And suppose I run this proc at this level and then this entire output gets transferred into an Excel data. So this entire output is now saved in this particular drive by this name, and I can display the output in Excel. And now this is open for any kind of further execution or any editing. Okay. So as like in Excel, we can also transfer these outputs to other kinds of files like Word file or PDF files if we want to. Now for these to be operational, the folder must be an existing folder. SAS cannot create the folder, but it will create the new file for us. So now this is into a Word file. Similarly, if required, we can take it into a PDF file also. Now for ODS, for a PDF, we must begin with this ODS PDF, and So now this output is displayed as a PDF file saved in this particular drive. So like this we can transfer any output from SAS to any kind of files like a Excel file, a Word file or a PDF file, and depending on our requirement, and accordingly we can put them as part of the reporting pattern or reporting structure which we want this to happen. So with this we come to the end of today's discussion, and to just wrap it up quickly, the things which we discussed today is number one, when we started off with conditional execution of data, so that involved the the introduction to concepts of the if, else, if, then kind of concepts. And then finally, when we had introduced the concepts of the multiple actions, we also introduced the do loop and the do and end loops. So once that was done, we introduced to the conditional display of data through proc print with the where conditions. And finally, we displayed how we can transfer the outputs to external files. Though I displayed this through proc print, but outputs of any procs can be transferred, so long as they are getting displayed in the output window, they can be transferred to any external files through the ODS mechanism, and we can transfer to Word files, to Excel files, to PDFs as and when we require. So you can now ask any questions which you have in mind regarding the session, and we'll be happy to answer them. Fine. In that case, since we can wrap up the session, so for any further query, you can reach us to us. You can call us, visit our website, and any further queries in any point of time, please feel free to write to us through our website and our email IDs. So, and our representative will be very happy to help you out regarding any questions regarding the analytics overall about the industry. Yeah, see, in general, this is a question you asked on the data and set. This was basically, we introduced this concept in the first webinar. Actually, see, whenever SAS encounters a data, or whenever any data is there in the SAS environment, the data remains closed when we are working with any data. Okay, so whenever we need to do any activity on that data, we need to write these two lines to tell SAS which library the data is in. Old. So that basically data new means I'm trying to put the data in a new library, a new data from old data in the old library, and then only we can activate the data and do any kind of operations in that data. So this is a feature of SAS basically, by which the data remains closed when we are doing the operation. Not only that, there's another feature is that if I open the data, I can't modify by clicking on the values. So that adds to the data security part of SAS, which makes it so much popular across the industry because of the data security part. So does that answer your question? Fine. So in case there is no other further questions, we can end this session, but please feel free to write to us on whatever queries you have about the analytics industry as a whole, or any kind of things related to SAS or Excel, VBA, and our representative will be there to help you out to reply to your queries anytime.